what is really going on here? See, sometimes it takes a while for me to discover what the real issue is. Mm-hmm. When I'm feeling something, whether it's disappointment, anger, or anything, what that's telling me is that there's something going on here. I'm experiencing something. I'm giving meaning to this experience that I might not even have well articulated in my mind.
Bill Wilson, co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, wrote in 1952, "If we examine every disturbance we have, great or small, we will find at the root some unhealthy dependence and its consequent demand." Wilson suggested that if we could identify and continually surrender these unrealistic and unrealizable demands, that we may then be able to accomplish what he imagined to be the recovery's next frontier, something he called emotional sobriety. Flash forward 70 years and join psychotherapists and best-selling authors Tom Rutledge and Dr. Alan Berger, who have taken up the mantle of exploring Bill Wilson's new frontier. Welcome to Emotional Sobriety.
Welcome to Emotional Sobriety, the podcast. I'm Tom Rutledge, and I'm with you're many things, Alan. You're my colleague, you're my friend, you're my brother, Dr. Alan Berger, and along with that, Patrick Newman, our producer, who has just become a part of our trio. Man, it's
he's our adopted son.
Grateful to be.
He's our adopted son. We've taken you on, Patrick.
Bless your heart, Patrick.
I know, God. Oh, you'll be in therapy many years afterwards.
Oh my God! You think the first time around was difficult? Wait till you see what we do with you. No, I always love being with you guys.
Me too. God, I was just talking to Jess before we got on today. The last 2 days, because we're getting that change into fall. You're experiencing that too, right?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, yesterday we got hit with a thunderstorm that the likes of which I've never seen. I was standing outside. I forgot what I was doing. I think I had just blown some leaves off the driveway or something like that. By the way, I never had to do much of that in Los Angeles.
I
didn't even have a leaf blower.
Well, listen, let's talk leaf blowers later, because I've got one that I love. It's like, I love blowing leaves. I mean, I'm out there.
I'm starting to find the joy in this. It
is absolutely pleasure. Yeah.
So I'm out there getting things set up, and all of a sudden I feel this rumbling. And I'm transported back to Vietnam when a big fire mission, or the B-52s, are dropping these bombs up in north. And we were in Da Nang, so we were pretty far north. We could feel the shock waves.
Yeah.
So this lightning struck about a mile from the house. I could feel the air. The shockwave from the thing. And then the rumble went on for, I swear, at least 3 minutes. I've never heard thunder that loud and go on, persist. And I'm looking up in the sky for B-52s. I mean, where did they just drop their bombs, right?
Alan's pile, he's hiding under a pile of leaves.
I had my assault weapon out. I was locked and loaded. Kids are going, Dad. No, I didn't get that bad. And then 15 minutes later, 50-mile-an-hour winds came through the backyard.
Yep.
It was swirling, and I thought, I was in Alice in Wonderland, right? With the tornado coming in, and I was waiting for the house to fall with the witch of the
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz. I always
you get those two confused. I know. It's too much LSD.
I thought the house was going to land in the backyard with the wicked witch of the East underneath the house. It was a trip, man.
To quote from there, I don't think we're in Los Angeles anymore, Toto.
That's true. I think that's true.
When your moods kind of match up with other folks, it's like the last couple of days have been tough for me, and I try to teach clients what I know about this, which is how to know when when the thing to do is to let yourself go down, and when the thing to do is to not kick yourself in the ass, but plant that boot on my ass and just gently but firmly nudge myself to keep moving. And somehow I woke up this morning and it was different. I felt better. It felt like I'd come through something. I don't know.
Well, maybe I'll have that experience tomorrow. But I was thinking that we were going to go push to do something. And I told Jess, I think I'm not going to push myself today. I think I'm going to just take it easy.
Tom mentioned feeling good while you're feeling bad last week, something like that. Is that am I bastardizing that, or is that the quote?
No, it's no, feeling good. It can be a lot of things, but it's keeping the sort of, I think I call it the pan back kind of position on myself to remember the whole history, because historically when I feel bad, if I have a tough time or depression or even such circumstances are difficult, that kind of makes, that kind of historically, I don't think I'm a lone ranger on this. It kind of makes me forget the gratitude and not focus on that. And it's like, so I do that. But the other thing is, this is, I really just use the hell out of the phrase, "this too shall pass," and try to remember. But the most important part of feeling good while you're feeling bad is to realize that the feeling good in that particular state is really just self-respect. It's about I'm going to measure in myself more. I like happy. I like having a good time. You guys know that. It's like I prefer being in a great mood. But if I'm not, it's like what I very consciously have shifted to and have as part of my daily practice is am I doing what I'm supposed to do, what I have decided is best for me to do to take care of myself? First of all, that means am I doing what I can to not let this overflow onto other people? Because in the old days, that would definitely be one of the first things that would happen is other people around me would have to duck and cover, even if it was just from my energy. Sometimes it wasn't even me saying anything. It was just me being, that dark energy can come around. But the other thing is just about self-care. It's like this is a good conversation about that because I think I did a pretty good job of doing that the last few days. And it's like this morning's kind of the reminder to myself that this too does pass, and just that's kind of why I say you surf it, you ride it out, and get to the other side of it. Yeah.
Thank
you.
I'm
surfing today.
Yeah,
surfing today. I don't
know about you guys, but one of the things that happens to me, and I don't think there's a rule about this, but I think probably all three of us have reported in on this one before. Whereas at the end of our spending time together on these Sundays when we record, I feel better.
Yeah, me too.
I have more energy. I feel validated. It's like it is, and not always, but sometimes it is like a little mini meeting we have, like we're doing right now, which is helpful to me.
And you talk about surfing, Alan. This chapter, Discovering Novel Solutions, in your book, it's in large part about strategies to cope with life. And so I have a feeling you'll be digging into your strategy toolbox today.
Well, I will be doing that. And I've got an anecdote for us. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to start with that because this, to me, we've talked about how a lot of this stuff is building on the insight before it. And look, it's just like the steps. I mean, even though we rank them from 1 to 12, they are relevant at different points in our life, right? Like step 10 comes up at a certain time, and maybe you're back and looking at 6 and 7 at some other point in time. So even
it's like the image on your book cover that I love, which is a box of tools. That's what those steps are. Yep.
Yeah. And I want to say that, I mean, I think that a lot of what we've talked about really is building a new foundation, if you will, for our life, right? At a very different way of looking at our life, of thinking about our life, of conceiving the problems we're having. I love the discussions that Tom and I have when we're working with a client. We always want to formulate the dilemma that they're experiencing in a way that gives them some room to move, to start
Yes.
to deal with it, right? To start to have a new relationship to the problem. And that's what all of these steps are doing. These insights into emotional sobriety are to help you achieve a flexibility in your thinking about things.
Well, you're moving. That's perfect because you're moving. We're helping people and ourselves when we're doing this move from victim, and that's not victim like
Right.
like an insult, but just victim meaning I right now I am what I'm responding to what's happening or I'm reacting to what's happening. But move from victim to problem solver.
Yes.
And in order to have the problems of you have to have that immediately. We use, you use it, have influenced me to use it more and more, the word differentiation. It's like, but the idea, I've been teaching that forever. The idea is it has to be you and the problem, in whatever form, so that now you can work on it. You can't work on it if you're possessed or just occupied by the problem.
It's so true that space that we can create between us and the issue we're struggling with can help us discover these novel solutions to the problem that we're facing. Whether it be shifting the relationship we have with different parts of ourselves, right? That's the intrapsychic work. Whether it's shifting the relationship we have with someone that's in our life, whether it's shifting the relationship we have to life itself and to what happens in the experiences we have. And so it's really, it's so powerful. I mean, I think those of you that are listening understand the power of now this new state of consciousness. It's really, and Bill Wilson said it. He says, this new way of thinking works under any condition whatsoever. It's not dependent on anything other than us and our attitude.
Right.
And so that is the good news in here. Talk about empowerment. This is the ultimate sense of empowerment, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because one of the first things any of us can say, I've certainly said it, but other people I hear clients say sometimes is, the first but that comes up sometimes when we start to talk about helping somebody get in. By the way, I think the idea of moving into that problem solver position, even before there's any solutions, decided upon or any solutions created, we're already better because we're in a proactive place. We're in, not in control, but we're in charge. And it's like that piece where it's what you said. I wrote it down. Our changing to our view of light, to our relationship to life itself. It's where psychology becomes philosophy more than anything.
That's right.
It really is more philosophical in nature. It really, and I love that stuff. And I was going to say the first but that comes up is people will say and it's normal, it's natural. We say, but you don't understand. And it's like, and what they mean by that, what any of us mean when we're saying that is, what you don't understand this particular situation, and it's like, and that's what I love about what you're saying. Bill Wilson said about, no, this actually applies to anything, anyone, any circumstance.
So here's the situation that came up the other day. So I have an 8-year-old, Maddie. You guys know,
I love Maddie
a lot. We talked about the dilemma that Jess and I faced when she was conceived and the possibility of a genetic abnormality that we would have had to confront. So, as you know, we've just moved out here to Pennsylvania, to Doylestown. She's actually, for the first time in her educational career, as young as it is, she has not struggled with going to school at all. She's loved it. She has 2 teachers that bring an incredible attitude about learning. I think the work we did with her to help her with her dyslexia and her attention deficit disorder has given her a lot more confidence. I mean, she just was her reading achievement was just assessed, and she's caught up. I mean, she was 2 years behind. And the work she did last year with the tutor that we had hired for her, that was a dyslexic specialist, had helped her tremendously. So she no longer even needs an IEP for that at school, which is great news. So Thursday morning, it was Friday morning. So Friday morning she wakes up And she goes, I'm not really feeling good. I don't want to go to school. I said, what's going on? She goes, well, my belly hurts and my head hurts. And I said, well, describe what's going on. And then I started to understand that she was somaticizing her anxiety about going to school.
Mhm.
And, I called Jess in and I said to her, there's something happening. There's something behind her not wanting to go to school. Let's see if we can figure this out. So we started to kind of go into an inquiry with her, right? Hey, what's happening? Is there something going on at school that you're not feeling good about? And she finally came out with it.
Mhm.
And she goes, I am so uncomfortable with where I'm sitting in the classroom. And I guess, what is it about that you're uncomfortable with? Well, I don't like the chair. I don't like where it's at. It's uncomfortable when I sit on it. And she started going into all things. I says, well, what do you think you could do about that? She goes, well, I'm afraid of telling the teachers because I think they're going to get mad at me if I tell them I don't like it. And so now she's torn between, do I just not say what I want because I don't want to upset them, because obviously the teachers had something to do with this current arrangement, versus take care of yourself. It's the classic dilemma that we see, that we all have at our life points. So, I heard her out and Jess heard it out. And, what could we do about that? She goes, well, I go, so, it sounds like you'd like some support in dealing with this in some way. What would be helpful for you? She goes, I'm not so sure, Dad. Do you have any ideas? I says, well, I could write a little letter and to the teachers and say, put it in your bag that you could give them, that would say that you want to talk about this, but you're concerned. You don't want to get them upset with you, but that you're really unhappy with where you're sitting. And can they talk to you about how best to deal with this dilemma that you're feeling? Would that be something that would be okay with you? And she goes, yeah, that'd be great. So we sat down and we wrote the letter together, right? And I wrote
First of all, I need to say I love that, because one of the things it does, that leaves the choice always with her. It's like she has the letter, you can use it or you don't use it. It's like whether she's thinking that way or not, I'm immediately going, you're giving her a new option.
It's a tool for support, right? It's a tool for support. So we finished the letter and I wrote out, and I really said to the teachers, I said, the real important thing I think here is to talk to her about the dilemma and how she can best take care of herself when she's facing these kinds of dilemmas in the classroom, specifically around this work, but if other things come up in the future. So we wrote it, we sealed it in an envelope, put the teachers' names on it, and put it in her backpack. She got dressed. There was no more, I don't want to go to school. The problem was solved. It was dealt with for her. She went outside, where she always goes, meets the bus. Before I left, I said, how you doing? She goes, I'm great.
She was no longer alone. She's no longer alone.
She was no longer alone. She felt empowered that she could do something about the situation. She got on it. We got a text from the teachers later on. She did turn in the envelope. They read it. They talked it over with her. What would you like to do? This is the situation. She says, well, okay, I can deal with it for today. And because the teacher said on Monday, you'll get to choose where you want to sit for the next 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, they do a changing around in the classroom to keep things fluid and stuff like that, which I think is cool.
That's a great idea.
Isn't it?
By itself. Yeah. We live in a world of assigned seating. I love the fact that they switched that around.
These teachers are the best I've ever seen
That's great.
Academically. And that's why this school district's got the reputation it has. But, she came back and I talked to her about it when she came home. How was that? It was great. How did you feel? I said, I chose to sit in there and that was okay for today. And I get to pick on Monday, and she was feeling great about it. So that's the difference between, for me, it was the search with Maddie to try to find a way to give her the support she needed. But like you said, Tom, to keep her empowered.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, I didn't want to be the bulldozer parent coming in and clearing the path for her and calling the teachers, you know what I mean? And saying, what did
Yeah.
you do? And, why is this going on? Angry with them. That didn't even cross my mind. What I saw this was as an opportunity to get close to Maddie, to have more intimacy with her and create this ability to talk about what's going on, and to help her figure out how to deal with these kinds of situations in her life.
Yeah. No, I love the fact that it's not surprising to me, but it's like, I think it's a really good piece for us to all keep in mind, whether we're dealing with helping your child do this or keep in mind as you're listening to this, we're also helping that child inside of us all the time too. So the idea is the first step there is to tune in to really listen. See, that's the coolest part. It's like what Maddie had there was two parents who are, we talk about curiosity a lot. It's like curiosity is not just like idle curiosity. It's like I really want to know what's happening here.
That's right.
And by the way, being somebody who was sick a lot or felt bad a lot because I was scared to go to school when I was a little guy, it's like my dad always knew I was. The way I put it in the old days, he always knew I was faking it, but he was always very kind to me. But we missed that part. We didn't have the part about problem solving.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful that you guys are. But the first step is listening, and that goes for other people and to ourselves. Listen to yourself carefully.
And the curiosity too, and this is so important in terms of this chapter. The curiosity goes to what is really going on here. See, sometimes it takes a while for me to discover what the real issue is. When I'm feeling something, whether it's disappointment, anger, or anything, what that's telling me is that there's something going on here. I'm experiencing something. I'm giving meaning to this experience that I might not even have well articulated in my mind. And it was interesting. I just went through a situation where I got some clarity on the other day. I was disappointed in this situation, working with these two guys that we're not going to work together anymore. And it wasn't so much the work I was doing with them. That was great. I loved it. And I did a great job. I felt good about it. But it was the disappointment that I had nothing to say about it. And what had happened to me was, it wasn't so much they could do whatever they want to do. Part of me would have liked for them to have the conversation. It wasn't. It was brought to me as a fait accompli. And that says more about them than me. I know that's to be the case. But what it tied into for me, and I wouldn't have got this, and I was talking to this the therapist that I work with, about every other week right now, as it's turning out. But what we got to, it was the disappointment I feel that I have nothing that I can say about it, like when my dad died.
Wow.
So that just so why that was so powerful for me, because I kept saying, how come I'm still having so many different feelings about it? Once she helped me put my finger on that, and I started crying about it, that whole other thing was no longer relevant.
Well, clarity, it made sense.
Yes, that's right. There it is. That's what happened. And so sometimes solving a problem is staying connected to it and allowing yourself to be open to something emerging, either from the forgotten past or from your unconscious, and then tying it in. That's what we were talking about on Thursday, right? If I'm feeling something in a situation, one question I can ask, what does this remind me of?
Even before that, is this familiar? That's one of my favorite questions to ask myself, other people. Is this familiar? Because if it is, this is exploration, investigation. It's like you could take a couple of trails that are dead ends before you find the right trail. The idea very often when emotions are the pain rather than a physical thing, what we do is we tell ourselves we should stop having that pain.
Yes.
Rather than explore it, investigate it, go underneath it to look for those novel solutions, because that's what you're talking about here.
That's going to kill the exploration right there, Tom.
Yeah, it just turns into another self-criticism, another validation that there's something bad about me or something wrong with me. It's like it stops it.
I struggle to find the problem beneath the problem often. but I do relate to the dynamic of writing the letter and kind of doing something to get a toehold on an emotional situation. Finding little moments where I can take action and become more of an active participant in what's happening to me and what's vexing me. I think I found that to be a big help. And
you're better at that point, right? Where the shift happens and you're a participant in it. It's like, that's the thing. That's the cool thing about the fact that, like we're talking about, this applies to any number of situations. Like that's the same thing that happens with Maddie when the idea is given. First of all, she's asked, and by the way, just kudos to you for being this parent that your child, when you ask her and she doesn't come up with something, rather than you just immediately, and you could have done that anyway, but it would have probably been fine. But I love the fact that she asked you for your input. Yeah. That there's room for her to ask. Yeah. The idea is it's not just right there immediately. It's you were asking her how you could help, and she asked you for a suggestion. And I know you well enough to know that if she didn't like that suggestion, you would have kept looking for others.
We would have searched for something else that worked for her.
Yeah.
So in the book, Patrick, it's been a while since I read that chapter. Did I talk about the experience at the Pantages Theater?
You did. I love that story. If you'd like to get back into it.
Yeah. So I just think that that's another example. And it goes to this point here about that Tom just brought up, is that if I get busy criticizing myself, faulting myself for what I should have done and all those things, I will not discover any kind of novel solution.
We shut ourselves down.
I'll be shut down. I'll just be feeling bad about myself. Yeah. And to be able to access the parts of my brain that can help me solve this, I can't be getting into this self-flagellation, right? I'm such a bad person, right? I'm terrible. I'm so stupid and stuff. Now, I will admit that when well, let me tell the story, and then you'll see that there were things that I did that were not very thoughtful, and that I didn't really look at certain issues that would have prevented the situation. And I'm glad I didn't, because I would have not had this story to tell if I didn't get myself into trouble. So that's the great thing, is that that's the thing we learn in recovery, that we see how our own issues and our own struggles can be of value to someone else if we learn from them. And that's a big part of what recovery is we share the wisdom that we gain from making our mistakes. That's you can almost summarize recovery in that sentence. But let me tell you about this one. So back to Maddie. Maddie's a real source of a lot of wisdom. She's helping me grow up a lot. So
well, the universe knew you needed a lot of help, and still, so they said, who do we have back there? Well, we got Maddie. It's like, let's put her in.
That's right. Let's get her off the bench and put her in the game. So she came in. She's the sixth person on the bench, right? So she comes in, and so we go to these great events. I mean, one of the things I'm going to miss about LA, but they have a fair amount of it out here. We're just discovering it. But they have these cool things like at the Pasadena Playhouse. They did these things like the Beauty and Beast in Christmas and Peter Pan and Christmas. And so they take the story, the wonderful fairy tale, right? And they tweak it and put it into the context of Christmas. Mm-hmm. And so we started going to these things when she was 2 years old. And it's one of these things where they encourage the kids to stand up in the aisles and dance and to boo the villains and cheer the heroes and stuff like that. So they do a phenomenal job.
I want to go.
It's me too. I'm missing that this year. We've had so much fun at those things. I said, God, I'd like to take her on something that would have even, more spectacular presentation and stuff. And I love the Pantages Theater for that reason. And so it's down in Hollywood, and they do some great productions down there. I've seen many great productions there. So Wicked came, and I thought, well, this is a bit of a stretch for a kid who's almost 4, but I think that she'll enjoy the costumes and the whole story and stuff like that. So I get these tickets. It's a hard ticket to buy. I get it through StubHub. I think these tickets are like $700 each or $750 each. They're not the best. I mean, the best tickets are like $1,500, but you know that the scalpers get a hold of these things and they make them.
I know it. A whole different subject,
man. I mean, God, Rolling Stones tickets, front row, $5,000 or something like that, or more. I mean, so, I splurge because it's our Christmas present for the family. So me, Jess, and Maddie go down to Pantages. We're all dressed up. She's in her little red velour Christmas dress. And, I have decent pants on and a nice shirt and jacket. And we're going to have our family outing, right? And we walk up to the door. We get there early because, we want to sit and enjoy the people and stuff. And we're about 20 minutes early and hand the lady the tickets. And she looks at me and she goes, I thought she was going to say, God, your daughter looks so cute in that red dress. She goes, no, that wasn't it. My spidey senses weren't working that day. She goes, I'm sorry, sir, there's a problem. I go, oh no, did I get the dates wrong? Right. So then I start to think what happened. I go, what's that? She goes, how old is your daughter? And I start to go, okay, I got a sense where this might be going. I go, she's almost 4. She goes, I thought she was that age. She goes, here's the problem is that each company that comes in sets their own age in terms of what the age of the children that would be appropriate for this play. The age for this play was set at 5 years old. And so your daughter's too young and I'm not going to be able to let you in. And I'm thinking to myself, oh shit. And then I said, well, God, where would I have been able to see that? Because I'm going to try to manipulate it a little bit and see if I can say, hey, come on. There wasn't a sign across the thing.
I didn't have a chance. Yeah. That's good.
And she goes, well, it wasn't, you'd have to really search for it, it's not in big print at all, but I still can't let you in. I mean, so that wasn't going to work. I said, okay, so now I'm into acceptance. Even though I'm not liking it, but I can see I'm not getting.
And by the way, one of the things I like about this story is it shows about your recovery up to that point that you got there as quickly as you did to that place.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I do.
Seriously, that's a big deal.
Years ago, I would have thrown a, where's your manager? And I mean, and made the situation much worse. So as I took my breath, I said, okay, well, so can I go ahead and get a refund then? She goes, well, that's the second part of the bad news. I go, what's that? She goes, well, you bought these tickets from a third-party vendor, StubHub. We only give refunds to those tickets that are bought directly from Pantages Theater.
Right. I
go, okay. So I turn to Jess and I go, uh-oh. I go, I don't think I'm going to be able to stand out here and sell these things. So I saw a Starbucks across the street. I go, I'm so sorry. Why don't we go grab a cup of coffee and decide what we want to do? We got $2,000 worth of tickets in our hands, right? So we go across the street, we get in a line. I'm clearly disappointed, but I'm not really doing the you should haves on myself. I just, it was the word I use in my consciousness now more than ever is this is unfortunate. Not unfair, but unfortunate. Because unfortunate has a less of a victim ring to it in my case.
Well, it's just, I've heard you say that before, and I love, and of course, I'm picky about, I think language can really make a difference if we use it right. And it's like, I love that. That's just changing the word reframes the circumstance.
It did. It really does. And it allows me to stay in relationship to it a lot better. So we're standing in line. I got these 3 tickets. I hate for them to go to waste. There's about 10 minutes before the play starts. I see this guy standing there, a gentleman in his 30s, middle-aged. Well, middle-aged. Now today it's not middle-aged, but 50 is middle-aged nowadays. But, he's in his 30s. I think he's with his wife and then with his teenage daughter. And there's 3 of them. And I go, I got 3 tickets. So I walk up. I said, Jess, I'll be right back. I got an idea. And I walk over to them and I say, look, and I tell them this story about we can't get in. Maddie's too young. There's these 3 tickets. I don't want anything for them. If you can use them, that would be the thanks that I have. I just hate to see them go to waste. He accepts them graciously. We go back in line, they huddle together, and then they come over to us.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, do you mind if I share with you what these mean to us? And I said, no, of course, we'd love to hear it. He goes, I am one of those workers. I work on oil rigs that are off the shore. And I'm going to be flying down to Texas tomorrow, and I'm going to be gone for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I got divorced about 6 months ago. My daughter said the one thing she wanted for Christmas was tickets to go see Wicked. And I couldn't get them. They were all sold out, but they told us, come on down and get in line. And maybe, some people cancel and we'll be able to sell you tickets. Well, nobody canceled. We weren't able to get in. He goes, so I can't tell you what this means to me. And he starts to cry. His daughter's crying. It turns out to be his girlfriend's with him. She goes, this is like a gift from, heaven. I mean, she goes, this is amazing. They walk away. Jess and I look at each other and we simultaneously said, that was the best money we spent for Christmas this year. It was the best gift that we could have been given, is to be able to do this for someone, feel good about it. And it grew out of this mistake that was made, out of this, what would have been a catastrophe. And had I not kept my awareness, see, had I been into self-pity, I would have never seen that couple standing there. I wouldn't have seen, I would have been so focused on myself, I would have lost my connection and my awareness to the environment around me.
Oh, any number of ways you could be self-absorbed. Again, this goes to the pan back kind of position. It's like not disconnected from it, but stand back far enough to where you have a picture that you can kind of watch the bigger picture and see it develop. And it's like, yeah, and I cry I've heard that story a couple of times and read it in your book, and I have a tear. I have a tear every time I hear it. I love the power of that story.
So powerful, and it's so appreciative. And once again, it's just what you said, Tom. I never thought about the pan back, but that is what it is, isn't it? It's a pan back is what I was able to do by not imploding. By not turning against myself, by not beating myself up for the mistake. It was a mistake. I made the mistake. I did get to finally take responsibility for it. So that's why I didn't need to blame Pantene.
Well, you neither imploded or exploded, because that being somebody who also has a history of exploding, it's like, it's the same. It's still self-absorption. It's like either one is destructive. And, I always want people to know that self-blame and blaming other people is equally, useless.
Yes, right.
Responsibility is not the same thing as blame.
You talk about left hemisphere of the brain is the ivory tower mentality, right? The binary. And then the right side of the brain is the visceral, the emotional, living between those two poles, right? That's kind of what you're trying to do.
It's interesting is that the brain there's certain functions that are localized. There was a lot of research that was done where they split the right and left half of the brain. Can you look that up, Patrick? See, there's a bundle of fibers in our.
It sounds like something from Dan Siegel.
I know. Well, it is.
Is it?
He's continued this work, but this work started a long time ago.
I mean, Dan Siegel is what is he? He's everything. He's a psychotherapist. He's a neurologist. Yeah. But every time I've heard him speak, I'm not smart enough to repeat what he said, but I always feel like he explains to me why therapy works.
So this corpus callosum, when it's split, now the brains, because typically there's so much communication that goes back and forth between these two, you can't tease out what's going on in the right and left hemisphere. But after this procedure is done, you can actually present something to one hemisphere and the other hemisphere doesn't know anything about it. It's fascinating. I mean, they go ahead and they have this split thing where only information is going left, say, to the left hemisphere. The right hemisphere doesn't get any of the information because this bundle of fibers, this corpus callosum has been cut, right? So what they found, if you're right-handed, the left hemisphere is involved in things that I talk about in the book. It's analytical. It's where language is housed. It's where our linear thinking is involved, right? It's that part of us, right? The right hemisphere turns out to be the opposite of that. It's more spatial. We think in terms of gestalts. We see the whole picture, right? It's those things. So it's it's nonlinear. It's almost a circular reasoning, right? A nonlinear reasoning. Well, it turns out that both of these sides of the brain have important information given certain situations. Sometimes it's important to look at a situation from a linear point of view. Other times it's important to look at it from this larger point of view, that like the pan back that Tom just talked about. The pan back, that's a right hemisphere function. Being able to pan back and look at that bigger picture, right? That's what the right hemisphere is doing. The left hemisphere is totally focused down on looking at the details of the whole thing and what they mean. But the right hemisphere will stand back and put it in a big context. The right hemisphere gives meaning to things. So it's very interesting. If we're stuck in one hemisphere or the other, we lose important information. You know, if I keep trying to solve it this way and think about the problem as a linear problem and it's not responsive, I need to be able to shift my cognitive set, right? The way I'm looking at the situation and look at it from another point of view and see if I can take it on. Well, that's that whole thing about this cognitive flexibility and what people are trying to do in terms of mindfulness and stuff is being able to shift your mindsets like that. And so you could hear in both of these examples, like with Maddie, the first example, I was a bit more linear about it. She was having a distress. I knew there was something underneath it. So that was kind of linear walking through it. Let's identify it and solve it that way. The other situation, when I said, hey, I'm just going to let go of this situation, they're not going to let me in. I got to accept it as it is. Let's just stay open to what might surface. That was more right hemisphere solution. Yep. So we're going to be moving back and forth, but I gave great examples in the book about that shifting, you know, so I really encourage people to read it about it because it is important is to realize if you're struggling with something, just back off for a minute, you know, but see, that's the big thing is sometimes we need to let go of having everything solved right now.
Right.
In the book, you quote William Blake, if the fool would persist in his folly, he would become wise. What is that? Can you unpack that for me? Because it sounds
all my examples, especially my example with what happened at, you know, with the Pantages Theater, but you could take my recovery. I mean, leading up to my recovery, man, and I'm still going to make a lot of mistakes. And, you know, what I would say, stay tuned because you'll learn more and more from Alan's mistakes as he lives his life and hopefully learns from them. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like one of the things I've always said about people in our business, especially people who are teachers about this stuff is I say, you know, I don't ever trust anyone who has the attitude of like, you know, I was screwed up a long time ago and I can teach you, you know, it's like, what I say is the advantage that we have is if we need an example of how we fuck something up, we don't have to have a very good memory. I just think back to this morning, you know.
I do love that about you, Tom. I do think that attitude that you bring to our work, to your clients' work, and just to the recovery community is so refreshing.
Well, thank you.
That we don't need to be more than ourselves.
And I think one of the things I talk to other people who were working, if I'm helping somebody who's wanting to write something on self-help nature or stuff is one of the things that really became a motivator for me. And there's a bit of an ego thing involved in it. I think the ego's not always horrible. Was that, you know, and this is still the case, but I mean, especially times where I think I was really struggling a lot more. It's like where as soon as I could find a way to write it down and make some sense out of it, where it might be help once I was well into my career doing this stuff and I could see that what I had screwed up the day before, the week before could actually be useful, not only to me, but to somebody else. I felt better. It felt like it really, we often say, we're just doing field research, we're out here living our lives. And it's like, but it really is true is if we don't apply this, and basically if somebody doesn't apply, if you don't practice what you preach, basically, I don't trust you. And I think that's one, and talk about self-respect. That's one of the main things that is that's one of the main ways we measure ourselves at the end of the day. And not how much help did I give to other people, but what did I learn today?
That's right.
Yeah.
You laugh at yourself a lot, and I think that's important too, right? And you discuss that in the book, especially in the context of right hemisphere, left hemisphere, is that the left brain, right, is more of the binary, strict, kind of all or nothing way of looking at things. So that's the right half needs to keep some air in it and laugh and kind of prod. Yeah, right. That's kind of the dynamic.
They're both valuable. And they're both valuable. Is like I don't want anybody to ever think that just one is more valuable than the other. We need both of those abilities to function well. It's all hands on deck. All hands on deck. And that's the work that we do with the intrapsychic process, is to bring all those different parts of you into harmony. Every part of you can be functional at certain times. You just need the executor in there making the decisions about which part is necessary or not, right?
Absolutely.
We just need that person, that wise self, the Yoda, my internal Yoda, to come out and say, okay, now, you need to right hemisphere for a while, let go of the left hemisphere, things like that.
Well, and I don't have this. This will be conversation for future episodes. But recently, because of some work I'm doing with a couple of different clients and understanding and how putting it in terms of how I think about my own consciousness, this whole idea of the multiplicity of consciousness that I've been working on writing about since 1990 is. I think I'm coming up on some more insights about it. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's like, it really is about kind of how to manage the multiplicity of ourselves. I always like to tell the story when I was doing a workshop for Pesci Healthcare one time and had some pretty eggheady people in the I usually say psychologists, but present company excluded maybe. but this one guy said he spoke up and said it sounds like what you're doing is you're making everyone you talk to help or try to help a multiple personality disorder. And I was proud of both my smart ass response and my actual response. My smart ass response was, well, yeah, but that's good for business. And everybody in the room did think that was funny, except for that guy. It's like, and he came around. But the other response was, yeah, I am telling people they're multiple personality. I'm just leaving off the disorder. It's, this is not the same as any dissociative disorder. This is a matter of the fact that there are so many different aspects of ourselves. Yeah. And the more we can learn about how it works and how we can be in charge and how we can find the part of, and that's what emotional sobriety, I think, is, Alan, is being able to live from that part of us, that authentic part of us that is the hub of the wheel, that is in charge. And where I feel distressed, I'm usually can find out that I'm caught in one of the other so-called personalities, and kind of lost there and not able to access the control panel, for that. So it's amazing how much there is still to learn. Yeah. And these conversations help me keep doing that.
No, there is so much to learn, and that's the exciting part about this. Mm-hmm. Well, good show.
I love this chapter. I love that story. I'm so glad you told it today. It's just such a beautiful, besides being educational in terms of what we're talking about and what you're teaching with your book, it's just a beautiful story. And it's I think it's a nice Christmas story, and it's, and it just makes me feel good.
A good seasonal touch. And, next week, we're going to be discussing breaking the bonds of perfectionism, which I'm really looking forward to because I feel very shackled by that, I think, in most of what I do. So this will be good.
Good.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Until next time.
Peace out.
Tend your life, tend your myth. Cultivate your narrative with whomever you're with. Then with glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me. It ain't a crime to be a human. Never be ashamed to be yourself. Rest assured that whatever you're doing will entertain me like nobody else. So here's to us, my old friends, until it's time to drink the wine and break the bread again. With glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me.